I'm Bob. I love Bob Newhart. It's the most hopeless name, Bob. Okay. I was going to say thank you for your kind words, but I don't know if you said anything. Thank you all for coming. There's a whole bunch of relatives, as Ross has already mentioned. All the superb artists of the home from Nova Scotia. And where we're at, there's Ollie's husband, Alan.
He's over here.
Born in Nigeria, of all places. Yeah. So I'm almost at the stage of any questions. We first started coming to Haliburton County in 1939. If any of you either know the history or around.
38.
38.
Actually, well, but we did have a guide then.
We read it for many years.
Okay, Ross is usually right.
Read the book.
That's when we first started coming. And then there was a war some of you might have heard about. It started in 1939. And we had gas rationing. And so Dad would bundle us 3 boys. I'm the oldest, and Jack at the middle, the end there, the former Ontario Fire Marshals, as you've already probably Ross said, and Ross. And drive us, because we obviously had 1 car, drive us up to the southwest corner of Lake Boschkamp and drop us there with Mom and a couple of her sisters, Aunt Elsie and Agnes. And then he would come up for his 2-week holiday to join us, and then we'd have a car. And we had to go into the top end of 12 Mile at Carnarvon to get drinking water. And we didn't know those big bottles and that kind of stuff back in the 30s. So we did that, Ross says from 38, anyway. We did that until 1946. And then somebody dropped a bomb somewhere, and the war ended quite quickly in 1946. And gas ration came on.
45.
It's not very good numbers.
Well, but it was 46 that we went.
You're about to say we had holidays in Nova Scotia and then ended the war.
But anyway, we had, Mom was longing to get back. Mom was a Spring Hill girl. And as Anne Murray is. And remember I met Anne Murray, or attended one of her concerts. And after the concert, I went up to her and said, my mom knows you're Aunt Elsie. I mean, my Aunt Elsie knows your mom. Anyway, and she said, oh yeah, Elsie and Morley. Of course, everybody knows down home. Everybody knows everybody, as they used to call it. So Mom came up, being a Nova Scotia girl. She came up and did secretarial work in Toronto. Big bad Toronto. I remember we went for a visit down there, and they still considered Upper Canada ruined. There's a lot of resentment about how all the business left Nova Scotia, and to me that was helpful because Nova Scotia is not quite as spoiled as the rest of Canada. It's still got a lot more of the original character. So anyway, that was our roots on that side. And Dad's side was Tweed, Ontario, north of Melbourne. So that's where our roots are. I don't know. There's so many things I could talk about, but I think I've talked long enough.
But you can ask questions.
Yeah, are there any questions about anything? Anything you've seen?
Bob, ask the audience any question you like.
Embarrassing questions? There must be crap.
When is the moment you knew? When you went outside and said, I want to draw that, and then you did it?
when I was 12. I got serious about art when I was 12. All little kids do art, but most little kids give up art around the age of 12. And go on to more grown-up things. And not yet reached that stage. I think it's too late.
Yeah.
So I got serious. I went home to school every day and did art. And then I had a little group of classmates would come in. I wasn't a loner. I liked people okay. I liked looking at girls a lot. They were scary. So it was usually a little group of boys would come in and lean over, watch what I was doing in the sunroom, which was our studio, the sunroom on Chapman Crescent, on the Beltline Ravine, which some Torontonians would call the belt of railroad tracks that went around Toronto.
If you ask them really nicely, you do a painting of a girl on your necktie.
That was a claim to fame I had. I was a fan of Milton Caniff, who did Terry and the Pirates and the Steve Canyon comics.
Yes.
Some of you might remember back those. And he was very good at doing girls, and I was an imitator of that. And I was a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. And in those days, a hand-painted tie was the thing. And so out there were these original Robert Bateman's Oxen pinup, all clothes on. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Bateman, did you remember this?" Other questions, yes.
You mentioned your son was born in Africa or Nigeria.
Yes.
What drew you to Africa?
Oh, Africa is it's got a purity to it that I didn't feel South America and other parts of the world had.
And you're offered a job.
Yeah, no, but I applied for a job in East Africa, and my closest buddy, Bristol Foster, who I went around the world with in Land Rover, but he had a degree in biology, and he got a job in Nairobi, which is what I really wanted. I got a job in Nigeria, and just before the Biafra War, some you might remember, it was a kind of genocide going on. I taught Biafrans, and but I'm very glad I did, because there'd be no other reason for going to Nigeria. But this guy was born in Nigeria with a big black midwife in the middle of the night. Yes.
In the evolution of your painting style, when did you find that you knew how you wanted to paint?
Well, I started out painting realist sort of things. I was influenced by an artist called Alan Brooks and Fuertes. They were in the National Geographic books of birds as illustrators back then. And I eventually got to know Alan Brooks' son, Alan Brooks Jr. And so I did little bird paintings. I think I was at every hawk and owl in North America by the time I was about 15. And then I got in with a bunch of, I've forgotten exactly how, but a bunch of people from the Ontario College of Art who were older than I was and much wiser. And they said, that's not art. That's just a mere illustration. For art, you need to get a big brush and slap on the paint. That's what real art is. This was in the 1950s. And that's when abstract expressionism started, and Jackson Pollock and all that on into the 60s. And so I said, okay, I guess I want to be a real artist. So I abandoned doing detailed things and nature and became much more of an abstract artist. I don't know if there's any examples, probably not.
The tree is so
In the water.
Water when you walk in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
When you walk in.
the reflections in the water, a little bit influenced by that. And, but then I gradually realized as art styles changed and the art critics were not to be taken seriously. They had a job to do, and their job usually was to cut the throat of whoever they were reviewing. If you're a critic of a play or a book, or if you're a critic, you had to cut the throat of the victim in order to, otherwise you were some kind of patsy and doing tough pieces. And so the most famous critics were the most ruthless. And I guess that's okay, that's their job and that's their business. But I didn't bother painting for the critics anymore. I decided to paint what I wanted to paint.
But you went to the Andrew Wyeth exhibit.
If you've heard of Andrew Wyeth, lived in Chadford, Pennsylvania. Only went to Cushing, Maine in the summer, and Chadford, Pennsylvania for the rest of his life. And he came to me, I don't know if you know your Bible, St. Paul on the road to Damascus. Anybody know him? St. Paul was, his name was Saul, and he was a Roman tax collector going to Damascus and going to collect as many taxes as possible. And suddenly, I think Christ appeared to him. Anyway, he had a sudden vision, and he went into a faint and fell off his horse and went into a kind of a fit on the ground. And when he woke up, he had the message. He was going to spread Christianity, and that was the beginning of the Roman Catholic Church. Was Saul turned to Paul, and became St. Paul, and started the whole Christianity thing.
What about Luther?
At any rate, if you get the analogy, I always digress so far, I have to tell people where I started. I fell off my horse. An abstract expressionist horse. And when I saw the Andrew Wyeth show, and Andrew Wyeth didn't care about critics or any of that stuff. He just wanted to paint his own home, and he did a lot of paintings of his wife and a lot of paintings of his mistress. And I immediately I went head over heels for the style of Andrew Wyeth. So much so that Birgit and I and Ross was, I think you were with us. We went down to Chadford and visited Betsy and Andrew.
We went to both places, Chadford and Cushing.
Yeah. Anyway, we knew somebody. I'm going too far. Rob Pyle. His uncle was Howard Pyle. Her grandfather, her great uncle was Howard Pyle. He was a great illustrator and friend of Andrew Wyeth. And we had met him on a trip, and he said, "Oh yeah, come and visit sometime." So we did, and then he connected us with the Wyeth family. And then we went to visit Betsy. She said, "Andrew is not feeling that well, so we said, well, okay, we just love seeing his Andrew Wyeth country." And that night we were looking for a place to have dinner. So Chadford Inn, a lovely little old mansion in Chadford, Pennsylvania, which had turned into an inn. We booked there, and we got into dinner, and the waitress said, "The Wyeths happen to be here." And yes, he's here too. We scored. So we did actually
fell to our knees.
we did actually get to meet him.
And their son,
Jamie Wyeth
was there also. The three of them.
Yeah. So I think Ross and Birgit.
There's a question.
Just one more. Your parents, were they filled with good sense of humor, and which one of you is the bigger prankster? That one?
I don't know, they weren't.
Oh, they weren't.
No, Dad was a taciturn engineer, and even worse background is Northern Ireland.
And I don't think this is a sense of humor, but you take Bob to the wood room and you pick out a plank
It only took a 2x4 to me once. Mom had a nice sense of humor, and she was the warmest-hearted friend of the neighborhood of everybody, and everybody would drop in and eat her food if they could.
Dad was an electrical engineer, lighting expert.
Dad was the foremost lighting expert in Canada
Wow.
at the time. Basically, he did lighting things like Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yeah.
He was a bit beyond it. He would do this just for people to help him.
At home, there were two sacred things: our United Church and CGE. And the song that we sang around the Christmas tree was.
Come on, baby, light my fire.
We played the lesson there. May Christmas light your happy heart. May Jesus light your tree.
I know the song, I don't think we ever sang it.
You said it chimed in there.
Does everyone know that?
Any other questions? Yes.
It's really great exhibition. It's nice to see so many varied paintings. It's clear from the exhibition that you shared your passion for painting with your children. And it must have been very rewarding for you to see them painting when they were young, when they were small. Could you say something about that?
Get a job, as I believe.
Get a real job and paint your little heart out. But you need to make money. But it seems wrong to paint to try to paint to please customers and please the public. So that would be, so Alan's right, that's what I would say. Get a real job, doesn't matter what it is, bricklayer, brain surgeon, and then in your spare time, and teaching was ideal because we had the summer holidays, then paint away. And I didn't have what you'd call spare time, I guess, because I painted every day till bedtime, after school, when I was a teacher, etc. That's all I ever did in my spare time. Bird watching paint.
So when I got a teaching degree and worked like hell at my arts, I would never have to work. I managed to never be employed, so.
We've never had a boss.
No.
Yes.
First of all, we love your finished, beautiful pieces, but in your career, are there pieces that you started that don't work out and you got rid of, you burned?
Did I say I burned them? No, I do have a whole bunch of unfinished ones. This stack about that deep with, that I made, the inspiration may come to me, and I might be able to finish them.
I don't think you threw anything away in the old days when you're doing pastel, on the scene, plein air things.
Yeah.
They were all successful in my memory. You didn't throw them away.
No, I never threw them away. I had them unfinished.
And in the worst weather, I used to watch him. He'd come up here in, early spring and sitting out there in the drizzle with his little seat painting away. The weather didn't seem to matter. Jack and I were doing chores and stuff and bothering me all the time.
They always thought I was trying to get out of work, doing the art. But I have four wonderful summers on Mountain Park. 3 working at the Wildlife Research Camp as what we call Joe Boy, digging garbage pits, filling potholes in the road, and drying the dishes. The cook did not believe in washing dishes. The dishes, and this was a whole bunch of guys eating egg for breakfast every day. the forks were all embedded with egg. They put them in a big garbage, on a galvanized tub, and pour boiling water on them. He said, that'll kill all the germs. You take the tea towel and clean off the egg. I actually cleaned not the dishes, but the forks and things with the tea towel. He said, it's easier to wash the tea towels.
Yeah.
I know that you've been a member of Algonquin Park for many years with Berlin and et cetera. Is a lot of your paintings done within the park?
Yes, at the Wildlife Research Center, which is, if you know Lake of Two Rivers, it's a campground.
I haven't camped, but my sister has camped in the park,
Yeah.
but I know that Vernon and
It's a private road, but it's not really advertised. They don't encourage tourists. But you go to Lake of Two Rivers, and there's a road going north along the little Madawaska River,
oh, I know where the Madawaska is.
and you follow that to the end. And the end of that road is the Wildlife Research Center. I think it's still going, and they're scientists, they're studying things like jumping mice and different kinds of parasites that go up.
And Bob, there was a lady that also was part of the Algonquin Park, but she was part of the museum, but didn't,
Who was?
she was part of the museum. She lived in Huntsville, no, she lived in Dorset, but she
You
was.
don't remember her name?
It's escaped me, but she was, she worked at the museum. There were the two ladies and they worked at the museum. I can't remember their names.
But I idolized, Tom Thompson was my hero growing up. And by the way, he was murdered. The murderer's name was Martin Fletcher. He's from Buffalo. And he Fletcher's. Fletcher was never charged, but he killed, they're both thought after the same girl. Her name was Winnie Traynor. There was only one girl in Algonquin Park. Just happened Tom Thompson and Fletcher were after the same girl. He and Tom got drunk and had Tom used to drink too, had a fight. I might have even come to fisticuffs at a party one night, and he was overheard saying, "I'll get you, Tom." And next day, Tom Thompson went fishing, which he did alone in his particular canoe, which was painted a particular, it's a teal special color he mixed up, involving cerulean blue and white, etc. Anyway, teal blue canoe, cedar strip, of course, and he didn't come back when he said he was coming back, and he always came back, because if you say you're coming back at such and such a time, that's a matter of life and death if you don't come back. And days passed, and he still didn't come back, and they found his upturned canoe with some fishing line tied to one of the thwarts and a loose end just dangling in the water in the upside down canoe. And a few days later, and this is macabre, but it takes a little while for a body to get build up the gases and float. They found Tom's body with fishing line wrapped around one of his ankles. And the canoe, the same fishing line was attached to the canoe. So he was murdered, put in the canoe, taken out, and then the canoe dumped. And at any rate, the girl who, Winnie Traynor, happened, just a coincidence, lived just the next door.
49 Minerva Street in Huntsville, next door to
That's right, her Uncle Cyril in Huntsville. Winnie, at that moment, after Tom was killed, Winnie became a recluse. Nobody ever got into her house. There was rumors that the house would be full of these, as you know, Tom Thompson did these little panels on birch, plywood actually it was. And her house would be full of Tom Thompsons. There wasn't one. She didn't end up with any.
I get a chance to see the movie West Wind. That's the perfect story. Really well done.
West Wind, which is his most famous painting.
Yeah, you get it at libraries.
Today happens to be the anniversary of the day they found his canoe. July
Today
8th.
is?
July 8th.
Oh, the day they
They
found
found his canoe, not his body, his canoe.
No kidding. Right.
Where is it now, Jill?
No.
The canoe?
Why is it still referred to as such a mystery?
Why is Tom Thompson so revered?
The family doesn't want the murder aspect known.
Yeah, his body, he was buried in a little cemetery above Canoe Lake, almost immediately because of decomposition and all that. And then a week or so later, the train came up once a week, and the family sent a metal coffin and an undertaker. And the undertaker said to everybody, please help me carry the coffin to the gravesite, which is up a little hill, and then go away. I'll dig up the grave, put the body in, it'll be all, you know, and come back in 2 hours. And they did, and they came back in 2 hours. And I talked, and Ross was there too, I think. I talked with the guy there.
Springer.
Anyway, we talked with the guy who was dug up. He said they went back up, and he said they hadn't dug up the coffin. It was a little hole about big enough for a groundhog. They were just too lazy. And they put rocks, he said, it felt like rocks in the coffin. And we carried this coffin, which to this day I think was full of rocks, and put it on the train, and that's Tom Thompson. He's gone to the family plot in Owen Sound. And then, but a lot of us, and there's a whole book on it, still think, well, he's now, been decomposed. But somebody later went back. It was an OPP, unfair provincial police guy, went up, and an undertaker went up and dug up, and there was a body, and there was a skull with a wound in the forehead where everybody thought Tom Thompson would hit. It was in the skull, and they sent it down to the Royal Ontario Museum for examining, and they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, so they just put it back up and buried it up there. And I guess it's all been gone a while ago, but most of us who know think that he's like this.
When I lived in Winnipeg, my friend was Dorothy Thompson, who was his niece. And she told me many stories about Tom Thompson, and they have a number of paintings of his, the family.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're lucky. I still think he's one of those brilliant artists.
Yeah.
Certainly Canadian, maybe in any history, and a wonderful, interesting human being. Yeah, yes.
Well, I was going to ask, over your long career, which has been exemplary, who are the artists that you admire now, in addition to Tom Thompson?
Well, I've kind of got myself ossified in a way of painting. As I said, Alexander Wyatt was my road to Damascus, as I said. And, I also, there was a bunch of abstract expressionists like Chris Still and Franz Klein and so on that I admired.
You also love Vermeer.
Pardon?
You
Vermeer.
also love Vermeer.
Oh yeah, Vermeer maybe is my favorite of all probably everybody here likes Vermeer too. He painted way too few.
May I ask why you chose acrylic?
Yeah, I mostly work with acrylic now. Yeah.
Why
Why?
did
Why?
you choose it?
Because acrylic dries fast, and I change my mind a lot. We've been, the rough idea, and paint over it and paint over it again. I may paint over the whole areas.
I can remember years and years ago, he just finished a beautiful painting of antelopes in acrylic. And Brad, you know, there somewhere, he was about this tall, and he went into the studio at the cottage and grabbed a tube of red paint, big splash of red paint right across it. Bob took one look and he said, "Jeepers." I smelled it and I realized it was oil. I said, "Just take some turpentine and wash right off."
Yeah.
What about that cottage, the Kingfisher and Christopher story?
Yeah, it's a similar story. Some of you might know the painting Kingfisher and Aspen. Kingfisher flying by a big aspen tree in the fall of yellow. Influenced by, who's the artist who did the?
Surratt?
No.
Big dogs.
Victor Razzarelli. Anyway, and I had a frozen, oh, by the way, I don't think I have a permit, but you should have a permit. But I have part of our freezer, in fact, maybe one whole freezer with dead birds. You can prop them up with a lifelike hose, like big coconut, and with pins and stuff, and put them in the freezer, and then they'll hold that pose, and then you can take them out until they sort of thaw. Pretty good reference.
Are you going to explain Christopher the painting and what he did?
Oh yeah. So I was working on this was
Kingfisher and Aspen. Kingfisher and Aspen.
Oh, it was the Kingfisher and Aspen. So all these little yellow leaves, a lot of work, because the water behind the yellow leaves got lighter and lighter. As you know, if you look out of the lake, the distance is paler and it gets darker toward your feet.
They wouldn't know who Christopher is. So.
Some of you may live near lakes when you're here. Take a look, check it, light to dark. So the transition of the blue, but the leaves were transitioned the other way, from dark to light. And so I had big black marks done by our little baby Christopher. And acrylic dries waterproof. But alcohol, in case you didn't already know, alcohol is a solvent for acrylic. You can't bring it back to be usable again, but it cleans it. It cleans it right off. So just ordinary rubbing alcohol.
But he never understood why we were so angry at him that time.
Because we encouraged him to paint other times.
We encouraged him when he did cracks in the rock, when he was 1.5.
Yeah, I did a lion painting, and I was perched on rocks, which I kind of made up, and I wanted random black cracks in the rock. And if you think about it, it's impossible to be random. Impossible to be random. If I ask you to think random now, can you go da, 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 da. That's really hard. It's easy to go da, 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 da. Anyway, Christopher toddler, he can be random. We'd encouraged him, so he got it, but we weren't there.
And we praised him so much.
Before that,
That time.
but not after he painted black all over the.
No.
I remember you, I think this was a real memory, that you were washing the Kingfisher in Boschana. Like you took it right down to the water, and started scrubbing it, yeah.
And then when it didn't come off, it was alcohol. Another question.
Are you still painting all the time? Are you still painting all the time?
Oh, yeah, yep. I've never heard of an artist who retired, if that's what you I've never heard of an artist who retired.
What about me?
You painted your screen door last summer. You painted your screen door last summer.
topic, I keep trying to get him to paint.
He does that to all children.
I think he thinks doing art's a lot of trouble, or maybe you don't.
It's work.
It's like, I don't.
It's lonely.
Pardon?
It's
It
lonely.
is lonely.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much.